Okay, let's just jump right into this explainer because we're tackling something literally every single teacher has wrestled with. You know the drill. You spend hours crafting what you think is the absolute perfect lesson plan. You've got all your materials lined up, you step to the front of the room, you're ready to go, and then reality just kind of smacks you in the face.
Imagine you're up there explaining a concept, laying it out perfectly, only to look out and realize, wow, okay, some kids got it instantly and are totally ready to move on, while half the room is just completely lost. You're teaching one lesson, right? But you're looking at 25 entirely unique minds, all processing that same information at completely different speeds.
So, when half your class is staring blankly at you, you're hit with this massive, immediate dilemma. And it really challenges the whole idea of strict lesson planning. The question staring you in the face is this: do you just grit your teeth, push through, and stick to your beautifully crafted script? Or do you hit pause and actually respond to what the learners right in front of you are signaling?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. Our roadmap for this explainer takes us through 1. The classroom reality, 2. Defining adaptive teaching, 3. The continuous cycle, 4. Adaptive versus differentiation, 5. Practical strategies, and finally, 6. The adaptive mindset.
So let's get into Section 1, the classroom reality, because let's be honest, it is messy and unpredictable.
Moving right along to Section 2, Defining Adaptive Teaching. This is really about giving you a framework for that messy reality. So, what exactly is this framework? Put simply, adaptive teaching means adjusting your instruction in direct response to your learners' needs, their actual understanding, their misconceptions, and their progress. Now, to be clear, this does not mean tossing your lesson plan out the window. It just means being flexible enough to pivot when the evidence in the room is basically screaming at you to change course. It's teaching that talks back.
All right, Section 3, the continuous cycle. Think of this as the engine of your instruction.
How does this engine actually run? Well, adaptive teaching is really this continuous looping cycle. First, you plan. Second, you teach. Third, and honestly, this is the absolute crucial part, you check to see what they actually absorbed. And finally, you adapt based on what evidence you just found. And then, you just do it all over again. It's a constant real-time loop of gathering data and making micro-adjustments.
Let's ground this in a real scenario, right? Say you're doing a science lesson on evaporation. You ask a quick question and suddenly realize a chunk of the class thinks evaporation means the water just magically disappears. You absolutely cannot just nod and move to the next topic. Instead, you make a real-time modification. You notice the misconception, you respond by hitting the brakes, you pull out a concrete diagram of particle movement to reteach it, and then you check again.
Which brings us to Section 4, Adaptive versus Differentiation. We really need to break down a big myth here.
A lot of educators tend to confuse adaptive teaching with traditional differentiation. But check out this comparison. Traditional differentiation usually means planning a bunch of different pathways ahead of time, like prepping different worksheets for specific groups before the bell even rings. Adaptive teaching, though, that's all about responding in the moment. It's about live, flexible approaches. Differentiation is what happens mostly at your desk in the planning phase. Adaptive teaching happens live on the floor. Both are super important, but they work totally different instructional muscles.
Okay, Section 5, Practical Strategies. Let's talk about how to actually do this.
Because we want to put this into practice without, losing our minds. You don't need to rewrite your core learning objective mid-class. Instead, you've got 5 really handy levers you can pull. 1. Explanation. If it didn't click, try explaining it from a totally different angle. 2. Scaffolding. Throw in some extra prompts or guided steps. 3. Pace. Slow down if they need it or speed up if they're nailing it. 4. Practice. Just give them a few more worked examples. And 5. Questioning. Ask super targeted questions to figure out exactly where the disconnect is happening.
Let's see a classic example of this in action. You're teaching math. You check a kid's mini whiteboard, and you see this. 3/4 plus 1/2 equals 4/6. Oof. They're just adding straight across the top and straight across the bottom. Now, an adaptive teacher doesn't just put a big red X on it and say, try harder. They see that wrong answer as a massive glowing signal. Instead, the teacher jumps straight into the cycle. They check the boards, they immediately identify the specific misconception, in this case, totally ignoring common denominators. They adapt right then and there, maybe by whipping out some visual fraction strips so the kids can physically see the math. And finally, they recheck by tossing out a similar problem. It is a seamless integration of assessment and instruction. And honestly, this hits the nail on the head for a really vital concept. Assessment isn't just about asking, did they get it right at the end of Friday's quiz? Assessment is information for adaptation. It's not just for the gradebook. It is the actual raw data you need to steer the ship. The real question you should be asking in the middle of a lesson is, okay, what does this response actually tell me about how their brain is working right now?
Which leads us perfectly into our final section, Section 6, the adaptive mindset. It's a fundamental shift in perspective.
Now, before we get too deep, we have to clarify what this is not. Adaptive teaching is absolutely 100% not about the utter chaos of creating 30 individualized lesson plans for one classroom. No way. If you try to do that, you're going to burn out by Tuesday. It is strictly about making strategic, totally manageable tweaks for the good of the whole room's progression.
Your mindset just has to shift. You have to move away from that panicky feeling of, oh man, how am I going to finish my slides before the bell rings? And pivot to one simple transformative question. What do my students need next? I'm telling you, that one tiny mental shift, it completely rewires how you interact with your classroom.
So let's summarize the core takeaways here. Number 1, always know your learners. Number 2, be obsessed with gathering evidence of learning while you teach. Number 3, be quick to spot those gaps and misconceptions. Number 4, adjust your instructions strategically using those 5 levers we talked about. And number 5, always check to see if your little adaptation actually worked.
The biggest thing to remember here is that you're still guiding every single student to the exact same destination. You aren't lowering the bar, you aren't watering down the objective. The goal is locked in. You're just keeping yourself completely open to, taking a detour if the main road is blocked.
It really all boils down to this one powerful mantra. Plan with intention, but respond with flexibility. Have your map ready, know exactly where you're heading, but if there's a roadblock of misunderstanding, be ready to smoothly navigate around it so every single learner keeps moving forward.
So, I'm going to leave you with this to chew on before you step into your next class. When you are standing up there at the front of the room, are you ready to let the actual live evidence in front of you dictate your very next move, rather than just blindly following the piece of paper in your hands? Because I promise you, when you make that leap, that is when true dynamic learning happens.